test. Oh, all right, y'all ready? Nope. Your mic's on. Good evening. I am calling to order the July 11th, 2023 Fountain City Council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Thompson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes.
Here.
Councilmember Hinton.
Here.
Councilmember Corey.
Here.
Councilmember Rick.
Here.
Councilmember Applegate.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan. 6 present, 1 absent. Councilmember Duncan did notify staff of her absence as she is attending the Manitou Springs work session this evening.
Thank you very much. That takes us on to item 4.1, presentations. We do have a presentation tonight from the Fountain Fire Department, so Chief Graham, if you would please come down.
Mayor, Council, good evening. I think I got to say hi to everybody already, but good evening one more time. Tonight I want to provide a quick update on the department in a couple of different areas. And so we'll jump right into it because we do have some ground to cover this evening. I count it an honor and a pleasure to be here to give this report on this organization that's a fine representation of the fire service, and it is your fire department and our fire department. So as we go to the first slide, this is a snapshot of our current year-to-date statistics. This is our call volume so far this year. We are on pace to be about where we were last year. The impact of the moisture that we've had for the last month is still to be determined. I don't believe that we have avoided our fire season. I think we've just rearranged it in the time of year that it will occur. And so stand by for that. We shall see. As we go on to the next slide, this is our current staffing. Right now we've got 45 full-time employees budgeted within the department. As you can see, the second bullet point there is our staffing levels. We have all but 2 of our firefighter paramedics staffed, and we're working on that right now. The hiring process, we're just finishing up and have made conditional offers to 4 employees or 4 candidates, waiting for them to go through the final stages of the process, which includes physicals and CVSA. And so we should know more about that in the next couple of weeks. Those numbers there above the 4 conditional offers represents the 20 applicants. Of those 20, 11 were qualified, being licensed paramedics. We processed 7, that means 7 showed up for the tryouts, and we've made 4 conditional offers. So that's where we stand on our current staffing as far as budgeted positions. As we go on to the next slide, this is a written representation of our deployment and staffing models. We have really 3 prevalent deployment models that we end up falling into on a day-to-day basis. And so this is for those that like to read, but we're going to jump into some pictures, some visual representations of what we're trying to say here. So as we go on to the next slide, one of the questions that comes up is, why is staffing and deployment important? It's extremely important and vital for a number of reasons. First and foremost, the safe delivery of services to our community. Without proper staffing, we cannot deliver in a safe manner to our community, particularly when it comes to fires and traffic accidents. So from a compliance standpoint, NFPA 1710 dictates what our standards should be, and it says that for a single family dwelling that is on fire, we should arrive on first alarm with a minimum of 15 people. So keeping that in mind, let's go on to the next slide. This is a visual representation for our fully budgeted positions on each shift. So this means everybody that is assigned to that shift is coming to work and shows up. This very rarely happens due to vacation, sick leave, workers' comp, military leave, any number of reasons that somebody doesn't come to work. This is a very rare occurrence. As we go on to the next slide, this is a more common daily staffing model that we see of 11. This is what we have right now today. As we stand, this is what our staffing model looks like. As you can see, going back to the 13, there was 2 personnel on every ambulance, 2 personnel on every engine. When we dropped to staffing of 11, one of the stations has 2 personnel total to handle the ambulance and the engine. This is pretty common. So I want to show you a representation of what occurs when we have one of our most common incidents happen, which is a traffic accident out on the interstate, which last year statistics show that we averaged over 1 per day, traffic accidents out on the interstate. We were at, the best I can tell, 416 TAs out on I-25. So when that occurs, we assign an engine with 2 personnel, an ambulance with 2 personnel, and the battalion chief. They go out on the interstate, and on the right-hand side, you see what's left inside the city to cover. So this happens on an average more than one time per day. So if we go on to the next slide, this is not an unheard of staffing model. This is our minimum staffing. Once we hit 9, this triggers mandatory overtime. This means somebody has to come back into work. We don't need to get into the weeds about what sort of issues that creates when you're forcing people to come back to work. But this, once we drop below 9, that's the trigger point for mandatory overtime. So as you can see, we have one station that has 4 personnel. The other 2 stations have 2, and then we have the battalion chief. So same scenario, going on to the next slide. When we have a traffic accident out on the interstate, on the right-hand side, you see what's left. Now, we make this work for a number of reasons. 1, the grace of God. 2, we rely heavily on our mutual aid partners. And 3, we have some extremely well-trained, hardworking, disciplined firefighters that consistently put others before self. So that's how we make this deployment model work. I tell you all this because I want you to understand what we're doing day to day, what our firefighters are doing day to day, and as we move forward, the needs that we have to address for the future of the fire department. As we go on to the next slide, we want to segue into part of the, get into the 2B vein and what that looks like. And we want to start with, and if any of you have any questions, I'm happy for you to interrupt me. We want to talk about the proposed Firehouse 4 that will also have a component for our police department. So essentially the public safety facility that's been talked about for many years. I know this has been talked about for a number of years. I know that Fire Station 4 has been a topic of conversation. I found a document dated 2002 that discussed Fire Station 4 and the potential locations. And so what I want to do tonight is express to you our recommendation for that potential location, and barring any objection from the council and mayor, that will be the location that we move forward. When doing an analysis of a community on placing a new fire station within the community, obviously you have to look at a number of things. If we could go back one real quick, thank you. We want to look at the community growth that has already taken place, that is currently taking place, and then projecting for the future. I know that's kind of common sense, but those are the things we want to look at. And once we bring it in-house to the fire department, we want to look at the level of service, the standard of our cover, which is a fancy way of saying level of service. How many people do we want to provide? How many firefighters do we want to provide to the community? And our response times, which is very important, whether your house is on fire or you're having a heart attack. The quicker we get there, the better off the outcome's going to be, generally speaking. We want to stay below 4 minutes from the time that we pull out of the station to the time that we arrive. What we call turnout time, the time it takes us to get to the truck, get our gear on, get on the truck, and get out the door. That's our turnout time. So, which is generally anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds. 120 is pushing it. And so 4 to 6 minutes is what we really want to shoot for total response time from time of alarm. As we go on to the next slide, this is just a representation, a snapshot of what we used as an analysis tool. For the proposed location, we looked at several different potential locations of property that were, is available to us. And we used on the left-hand side is the metrics for street time travel. So essentially taking a response time from different locations throughout the city, potential locations, judging what that time would be as a response from those locations, and then also looking at existing fire stations and the response times from those, and where those overlaps, those polygons overlap. And so we use that as a metric. The other metric that we used primarily was on the right-hand side is our call volume and location. That's from last year, 2022. Every dot that you see represents a call for service. And so if any of you ever want to come in and really take a look at that, I've got it on my computer, we can drill down into that. But we made every attempt to use true analytics and statistics in making the decision to bring forth this recommendation for you tonight. So as we go on to the next slide, what you're going to see is what we landed on as our proposed location. And again, this is the location that probably is not a surprise to anybody. This has been, again, talked about for a long time. This is the northeast corner of Link and Watchman, over in the Aspen Ranch new subdivision, right when you turn into the subdivision off of Link. And so we believe this to be a sufficient location for expansion of our new fire station. And it would be my recommendation that we move the process forward to utilize this location. Now, that being said, there's a lot that would go into that. Obviously, we have to get, God bless you, we have to get architects involved and make sure that this is all going to work. There's utilities already there, which is a plus to us. And so this piece of property is in the process of coming into the possession of the city through an agreement with this development. And so that's not complete, but the deed process is going to move forward, assuming there's no objections tonight. As we go on to the next slide,
Excuse me, one second. How
Yes,
large
ma'am.
of a piece of property is it?
It is 1 acre.
1 acre?
1.01, so 1 acre.
Okay. Richard, did you have a question?
It's kind of an odd shape, though, is to be sure they can get the trucks around and do all that.
That will be the next step in that analysis. It is going to be tight.
I go by there a lot. That didn't look big enough to,
I believe that the layout of that location will ultimately impact the type of building that we build. I don't see with what the PD wants, which isn't a whole lot, they're not needy like the fire department is, but with what they want to see in this facility and what we're going to need to see in this facility, I don't see us doing it one level above grade. I see us having to go probably to potentially basement. That's for us and the architects to sort out. But you are correct, sir. It's going to be a tight location.
yeah, to get the trucks inside with that perimeter fence, that's going to be,
It'll take some snazzy engineering.
yeah, I think so.
So, any other questions before we move on? So the next slide represents what our staffing would look like with the addition of our 6 2B employees that we're in the process of hiring right now. Well, we're in the process of hiring the first half of them, 3. And so this takes the fully staffed or fully budgeted positions that I showed you before, the 13, and just adding the additional 2 to that per shift. And so this is what it looks like with everybody coming to work, all budgeted positions filled, and we don't have anybody on sick leave, workers' comp, vacation, military leave, or at their dog's funeral or whatever. So that's what this represents here. As we go on to the next slide, I think we've come to a point to talk about left column changes now and to come, and then on the right column are some of our challenges and needs, which I think I've articulated a little bit of that. As far as the changes that we're going through right now and that will come pretty soon, 2023 marks the 110th anniversary since the founding of Fountain Fire Department in 1913. If you look up in the right-hand corner, which has been on every slide, that is a picture of our newly designed patch that will go on our uniforms to mark the 110th anniversary. This was designed by one of our own firefighters, super talented, was able to come up with this design. Everybody liked it, so it will be our new patch moving forward. This also marks, obviously, our first year of being a fully paid department without a volunteer or part-time component to our workforce. And so we wanted to acknowledge that as well. I do have in mind some title changes and restructuring. More to come on this. I don't want to get too much into the weeds for the sake of brevity, but I would expect that this would come back to you. And I can say, remember that night I mentioned it, here's what it is. MA1 is interesting, and I put this on here. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but there will be a press conference being held on this in the next week. What MA1 is a mutual aid agreement between the counties, the fire departments within El Paso County. And so the crux of it is if Monument is dispatched to a wildland fire in their district and they show up and it's beyond the scope of their resources right in that area, they'll request an MA1 response, which activates a unit from 5 other departments within El Paso County. It's on a rotating schedule, so you spend a week basically on call. Once you get the notification and the location, units go to a predetermined location and then go on to the fire from there. Very structured. This is in conjunction with Colorado Springs Fire Department and many of the other departments within El Paso County. So there's like I said, a press conference coming out next week. I wanted you guys to be aware of that. We are participating. And so I think that it's a benefit to us, not only for us to be able to go help them, but from a selfish fountain standpoint, when we need help, the cavalry's coming. So I'm excited about that. Been in some very extensive discussions about the Labor Day dinner and dance. And if anybody wants to visit offline about this, I'm certainly willing to do so. But doing an evaluation on the Labor Day dinner and dance, it appears to me that this may be a tradition that we opt to no longer continue. And there's many reasons for that. And I'm happy to talk about that offline. We can talk about it from here. It's up to you guys. But from the records that I've seen, attendance has dwindled. The money that's been invested in it has not returned. And we've continued to, the fire department's budget has continued to take a loss on this over the years. So not to say we're not going to continue to do public outreaches. We're going to focus on the Labor Day event in the park that happens on Monday, Labor Day. So I just think that it may be time to make a change in regard to the dinner and dance. Challenges and needs coming up. We are facing an ISO inspection right now. I was contacted by them last week and sent some pre-survey material. So I know you guys have heard about ISO. Well, it's time. They're here. They'll be coming. Once we get all of our pre-survey information submitted back to them, they'll schedule a time for the inspector to actually come out and do the evaluation. Yes, sir.
Chief, can you just explain to the public what ISO stands for?
Sure. So ISO stands for Insurance Services Office, and what they do is they come in and they do a third-party evaluation of a fire response district. They look at primarily 3 different things. They look at the fire department, our abilities, our equipment, our staffing, number of personnel, amount of training. That's just the tip of the iceberg on that. They look at the water production and distribution system. And the third component that they really focus on is our communication system. So they'll come in, they'll evaluate us, they'll evaluate our water system, they'll evaluate El Paso County Sheriff's Dispatch, because that's where we're dispatched out of. Once that's all done, they put together the results and they assign a ISO rating. ISO rating is from 1 to 10, 1 being the best fire department you can be, 10 being you might as well not have a fire department. We're currently at 3, and so this will be this is done on a 10-year rotation, and it looks like the last one that they did here in Fountain was in 2014, so it's time. So they're coming in.
And this also helps with homeowners with their insurance and things of that nature.
That's a good point. Thank you. Yes. So the lower the ISO rating, the potential for lower homeowners insurance occurs. So that is on the radar and it is coming. I think I've expressed my concern with our staffing and deployment model. I will say one other thing, that there is potential need in the future for on the administrative side to add a life safety educator, and what this person would do would be an entire scope of things, but really to get out in the public, do education. There's a component within ISO that we get credit for, and we could expand our fire prevention programs with somebody dedicated to public education. So that's that's a Christmas list item that we have at the FD. We're going to look into SAFER grants. This is the federal program that provides funding for firefighters that eventually the city has to pick up the full burden of after a number of years. That federal funding goes away. With the new fire station, we have to have consideration and keep in mind a new fire truck. Our oldest reserve right now is a 2001 model. She's old reliable, but she's a 2001 model. So we need to keep that in mind, that we're approaching that, as well as an ambulance for that station, which I would opt at this point to do a re-chassis, take the equipment box off of one of our existing trucks, put it on a new cabin chassis, to, savings of $60,000 to $80,000 over buying a brand new one. So I think that is my last information slide. Are there any questions?
Any questions from any council members? Councilmember Gordon.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. 2 questions. This last year, during the last 12 months, we purchased a new ladder truck. We had one on order, and we were going to sell that. Did we get that sold? Is that all taken care of?
It is not complete. However, what we finally did was communicated to the company that's building the truck, for them to explore different buyers and to return all the money that we had placed on that. In talking to the company representative last week, he's 99% sure he has a buyer. We should know within the next 20 days if that is confirmed or not. He seemed pretty confident that they have a buyer for it, which would trigger the return of all of the money that we've placed on it. I do have a confidence that that's going to take place.
Okay. And then secondly, I know the bunk room in Fire Station 2 has been completed. I believe Fire Station 1. Do we have a target date yet for Fire Station 3?
It is complete as well.
Okay. That's
Yes,
all I
sir.
have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, any questions from anyone in the audience? Questions or comments? Anybody online?
No questions online, Madam.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Your mic is still on, Mr. Rick?
Sorry.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you very much. That's a great presentation. A lot of stuff to digest and think about. Thank you very much. We're, again, we're excited that you're here, so thank you very much. All right, that takes us on to item 4.2, Board, Commission, and Committee. Appoint 1 regular member to the Heritage Maintenance District Board.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. We did receive 1 application for another full-time position on our Heritage Maintenance District Board from Mr. Everett Frazier. It will be a 4-year term. We still do have 2 alternate positions available on that board, but we are very pleased that we have another application. And I don't believe that Mr. Frazier is here in the audience tonight. He was notified, and I don't think he could make it to the meeting, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's been a long time since that board's had a full board. So that's great to see that happening. So what would council like to do with that? Item 4.2? Councilmember Estes?
I move to appoint Mr. Everett L. Frazier III to the Heritage Maintenance District Board as a regular member.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Corey.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second from Councilmember Corey for the appointment. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Whoa. It disappeared before we all got a chance to vote.
Yeah, you guys got in there quick.
I don't know what you did. Y'all were sparkling over there, huh? All right, let's try it again. All right. Yeah.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, that takes us on to item 5, City Council agenda requests. City Council shall use this time to request any items for future consideration. I'm going to start on my left here tonight. Mr. Rick?
No items for tonight, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Corey?
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Hinton?
No items tonight, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Estes?
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember Applegate?
Yes, I do have. There was some time ago, there was there's some houses on Ohio, on the south side of Ohio, there's 4 lots. And they were not admitted to the city on an enclave by a split vote some time ago. They were 100% from the planning at the time. And they have been in the county and not in the city, but part of the city. And there is concern because there's been talk of one resident there now shooting his gun on his property, which is in our city, but not in our city. We can't do a thing about it. He's in county. And it would be really behoove us to go ahead and annex this entire enclave and put those people in the city. They do use our roads. They use everything else. We take care of them. They know they got our services. And we definitely should look in to annexing that four lot enclave there.
Okay, so that's been a really, really long time ago, probably years and years ago.
Long time
Long
ago
time
that
ago
was
for any of
turned
us who are
down.
on council, yeah. And so is that something that other council members are interested in adding on as an agenda item?
I would be willing to add that as an item.
Yeah, I'd be willing to discuss this.
Yeah, I'd be willing to add that.
I'm good with it.
So just to clarify, we're adding it on really at this point as just an education item to find out what happened in the past, why it was turned down, and that kind of stuff, not as any item to act, not as any action item, right? This is just bringing it back as a I want to make sure we're clear on what everybody's saying.
We wouldn't
yes
have
to.
an item to actually act on yet, but I
Right.
think the first thing we'd want to do is go back and get a little bit of historic perspective.
Right.
Bring that history to the council, lay it out, give you guys an overview, and then at that point discuss, okay, what's next? What does the council want to do with that? So we'll do that. We'll pull that information together.
Okay,
I
All right.
can personally tell anybody that wants to come privately talk to me about what happened.
well, hang on. The problem, I believe, if you start discussing it with other council members, or you just ask for something to be brought to council as an action item, if you start discussing it amongst yourselves, Tori, we're going to get in trouble, right? So the education piece should probably come from,
Yeah, that's probably the best course to get some education from staff and then have a discussion about it at that time.
okay, all right. I remember it. I wasn't on council, but I remember it because I was kind of sitting in the back fascinated by what was going on. Okay, all righty. Okay, any other agenda requests, Councilmember Applegate? Okay, all righty, okay. All right, and I have nothing either tonight, so that takes us to item 6, public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Council may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up. Out of respect for the council and others in attendance, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I do have one card from Mr. Himes tonight from the VFW, wanted to share some upcoming events with us. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor, and rest of the council. Just a couple real quick things tonight. Just want to highlight that August 12th, we have our annual picnic down at the Post from 10 a.m. to close. It's really our one big fundraiser for the year. It's a free lunch. We have ponies, kids rides, the police and fire department both participate, do their demos. Really trying to get the community out there and enjoying themselves, similar to what we did last Sunday. And then we're putting together a Labor Day veteran event down here in conjunction with American Legion 38, Mount Carmel, VA and VBA reps. And what we're trying to do is we have donations that we're going to get back into the veteran community. We also have Sports Clips is donating 8 of their barbers to come down and provide free haircuts, et cetera, for the veteran community. And what we're trying to get to is right now we're looking at piggybacking off the Labor Day event at Metcalf Park. However, based on space and power requirements, we may actually have a booth out there and then divert people over to our post, just to make you aware that we're not trying to detract from that event. We're just trying to manage space. And then the last thing, I was asked by a few of my members and some of the local community here to bring up some issues on Link Road with flooding. And I had 3 of my members that had their main floors flooded a little bit further up Link Road from where the road was closed out up in the Little Ranches area. And we do have some community members here as well who had their basements flooded. And we're trying to figure out what, if anything, the city can do to address this. And some of it is water being diverted into yards by utility boxes and things of that nature that are owned by the city. So just trying to get that out there for comment from the council.
Okay, give me just one second. Mr. Trainer, would you like the other citizens to come up and just kind of share what's happening on their property, and then you can answer his question after
Yeah, and
you
I'm not sure
gather
that I
all the
have an answer.
information?
Yeah, I'm not sure
Right.
that I have an answer here, but I think what
Okay.
would be probably the best way to get to the answer is actually meet with those folks and figure it out, specifics of those properties, and have them meet with our utility folks.
Okay, so if you'd like to, if you're comfortable coming on down and kind of sharing a little bit of what happened, and just state your name for the record, please. We're not mean. We're not mean.
I'm Kimberly Ostrander, and I live at 957 Daffodil Street. My entire basement was flooded within less than a foot of the ceiling.
Oh, my goodness, wow.
That's how I felt when I opened the basement door and saw that the water had come halfway up the basement stairs. I'm the one who has the utility box behind my house, so I guess for reference, when I look out my backyard, Link Road is back here, there's a big pasture, and then Little Ranches is here. And I do have a huge utility box that has a giant cement platform, which helped funnel the water that was flooding down the road into my backyard and then subsequently into my basement. So I've been here for 28 years, same house. I realize lots of people have been affected. But our whole area, and I have another neighbor here too who was also impacted. But it would be fantastic if somebody could take a look at what is going on behind my fence and down in that particular area, because I don't know that it's been addressed.
Just for clarification, is that from the flooding when Chilcott Ditch overflowed? Because that's what happened down in that area, and actually further to the west as well.
I don't know.
Okay.
So is it
I'm
the
sorry.
first storm or the second storm?
June 21st.
I don't know the dates.
June 21st,
so-
22nd, so
Okay.
the most recent one, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've never had
right.
nothing.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, and
So-
I got you live on Daffodil.
I do.
Okay, and so make sure before you leave that we have your house number. Don't state it in
No, it
public,
happened
but that's
Okay.
fine. But,
Yeah.
okay.
Sure. Who do I talk to after?
If you could grab one of these cards at the back and put your
Okay.
contact info
Yeah.
on it, and then
Okay.
if you'll just pass it to Scott there.
That would be great. You know, I live in a neighborhood just to the west of you.
Okay.
And that same thing, Chilcott breached there, where you are, where we are, got a bunch of homes. But yeah, if you could leave your contact info, we'll reach out to you.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah,
super.
absolutely.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
and you have a neighbor that also flooded, another neighbor? Come on down.
Hi. I'm just here for the same reason. My house flooded. It's never happened before in 13 years. I didn't see water
Same here.
in the area that you're
What-
talking about.
Can you state your name for the record,
Oh, I'm sorry,
please?
Lori Angel, and I
Okay.
live at 949 Daffodil Street. So I'm very close to her, about 4 houses down. I think all of us in that area were really impacted. I lost everything in my basement, the family room, family pictures, everything. So it was definitely very devastating, and to not, none of that's covered by insurance. So, but I think my biggest point for all of this and coming here today was just, what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? So I'm just
Right.
hoping that you guys can help us find a solution to some of this.
Right.
And I've got a card to fill out.
Oh,
so-
perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and if you hear of any of your neighbors, Scott's email address, strainer, I'm just going to say it for the record,
Huh?
STRAINOR @fountaincolorado, all spelled out, .org. And he can just collect the emails and then work with the utilities department and
Sure.
different people and see kind of what's.
Well, and we'll work with the
Yeah.
Chilcott Ditch Company
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, you'll contact everybody that needs to be
Yeah.
contacted, so,
Okay,
yeah.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
in.
thank
And
you
I
for
do have a
hearing us
light
out.
on from Mr. Rick.
Mr. Trainer,
This
I'd
one.
like to be included in that meeting, please.
Also, can you include me too as well?
Okay.
And that's all we had from the VFW.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for everybody coming in tonight and letting us know about it. I hope you got good photos, too. If you have any photos, attach 3 or 4 of them when you email, so, okay? All righty, and yeah, fill out those cards and get your contact. Okay. Are there any other citizens to be heard in the room? Mr. Linder?
Al Linder, REA Road. I came to the meeting tonight because I thought the police chief was going to give a talk on the fireworks, and I don't see it on the paperwork. So are we going to talk about that?
He's planning on doing it at the end, when we have the ex officio comments, but if you would like to state your comments on what you thought about the fireworks, I'm sure we can be a little flexible on that.
No, I wanted to hear the whole thing.
Okay, well,
So it's at the very end?
we can be flexible. Let's get through the citizens to be heard time, Mr. Linder, and then we will do it then. How's that? Okay. All right, are there any other comments from anyone else in the room? Any comments from anyone online?
No comments online, Madam Mayor.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public to be heard part of the meeting, and since we've had a request, let's go ahead and, Chief Christiana, if you could just go ahead with your presentation now, and that way people don't have to wait through the whole meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and give an update. I have 2 updates to give. I'll give my second one later. I'll start with the fireworks. And let's get down to the nuts and bolts of it real quick. In total, we had 2 tickets written to homeowners with a potential of 5 once we figure out exactly who the homeowner is and if that was actually where the fireworks came from. Along with that, we're going to be issuing out 15 warning letters that we're going to be mailing out to houses that we believe, however, couldn't prove beyond what we need to prove as far as a summons, whether the fireworks came from that house or not. So we're going to issue out 15 warning letters, basically letting them know that we believe the fireworks were coming from their house. This is their warning, and we're going to go that route. A couple things I want to address. Surely the question's going to come up, why is there only 2 tickets being written? I want to make sure I'm clear on what my direction was to the department on July 4th. On July, actually I want to show, can you bring up that video? I want to show a quick body-worn camera of an officer. This is actually on July 1st. It's Officer Corporal Moore is out trying to address a couple of fireworks complaints on the 1st. And he had gone to a house just up the block and tried to figure out where the fireworks were coming from. This particular video is down the block on the other side of the houses where he's addressing another complaint about fireworks. And I just want to play a little 40-second snippet to give a little context. Go ahead.
Fireworks fall on the 10,000 block. Says 10,700 block by Hidden Park. So, hey, everybody, can I have your attention for a moment? Okay, I don't know who is lighting it off. Okay, so the city of Fountain will issue citations, $400 per household.
You can stop it. Thank you. So the reason I show that video is a couple of reasons. One, my direction that night on July 4th, and of course this is the 1st, but my direction on the 4th was I wasn't going to send my officers into neighborhoods in an unsafe manner. I didn't want to cause, I use the term a neighborhood riot. I know that's extraordinary, but what I'm trying to say is I didn't want our officers to go in there and cause what would have ultimately ended up probably in arguments, verbal arguments with the police. I can tell you that officers that did some pre-patrols on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, all the way leading up to the 4th, were booed in neighborhoods, were cussed at in neighborhoods, were given unsavory hand gestures in neighborhoods. And it really kind of, and I got that report before the 4th. And so my direction to the officers in the 4th was, you write a ticket where you feel safely you can go in and do so without having a neighborhood uproar. As you can see, the officer was in that neighborhood where the fireworks went off. He was just there trying to advise not to light up fireworks. As soon as he left, that's what happened. An absolute disregard for the ordinance, for the officer's direction, and then he goes into the neighborhood and actually finds some courteous citizens and tries to address 5 or 6 houses at the same time. It's ironic, it's a little absurd to me. It was very difficult to manage this problem. The 4th of July, obviously, as you alluded to, Mr. Lender, was out of control. And I put that responsibility solely on the citizens that chose to break the law and to go against the ordinance. We had a very strong educational piece to this the entire month of June. We had social media posts. We had from the city, from the police department and the fire department. The fire department put together a very comprehensive video of about 2 minutes of what you can do and what you can't do. Along with several mentions here at City Council about the ordinance. This was well educated. What ultimately happened was citizens made their own minds up and they made their decision to do what they were going to do. And I provide an analogy that we have speed limits out here that are enforced every day. Speed limit signs tell you how fast you can drive, and on a daily basis, we write tickets for people that just choose to do what they're going to do. So, you know, with that said, numbers are low. We had 21 total calls into the police department for aerial fireworks. I'm going to speak for Devin because him and I discussed prior. They had a total of 2 calls for what they believe might have been a fire, which was not, and a smoke call for what turned out to be a barbecue. So at the end, we had no reports of injuries, fire, or anything other than illegal fireworks being shot off. Mr. Linder, I hope that gave you a little summary of what you were looking for, but I'm welcome to answer any questions right now if anybody has any, including council.
Mr. Linder, did you have a question or comment you wanted to come on down with?
When I'm talking, you know, I don't mean to be disrespectful to you when I turn, because I want to talk to somebody.
And that's fine,
so-
but we just need you to stay kind of near the microphone when you do that, so it can get recorded.
It's kind of hard
Yeah,
to
no,
look at
just
you.
Yeah, kind of move the microphone so you kind of stay by it.
Fire chief, you live in Cumberland Green, yes?
Yes, sir.
What the hell happened over there?
There were a lot of fireworks
Yeah.
that were shot off.
You know, last year when you first got here, whenever it was, Mayor, you were there, we had a little discussion over at the pawn shop, right? You and the chief. And basically, I heard the same kind of story that Mark just gave, where Chris Heber decided not to send in his officers because he didn't want to have a riot, and boom, boom, there'd be a big fight, and boom, 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 so he backs out. Well, these people broke the law, disrespected the citizens. Now, I'm sitting in my barn, and about 6:30, 7 o'clock, boom, 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 these things start going off like crazy. I'm sitting in the barn thinking, I says, okay, I was going to call the police. I'm sitting there, I says, you know, let's give it an hour or so, see what happens. Let them do what they want to do and have some fun if that's what it is. But I believe it isn't fun anymore. I believe it's something of disruption. They want to cause these problems. When these explosives went off behind my house at Cumberland Green, I saw exactly the houses in the street right along Eagleside School where they were coming from. Now, I got the ex-police chief that lives there, fire chief lives there. This whole freaking place was blowing up. The neighbors were cheering and clapping, you can hear it. But every time those bombs went off, a minute later I heard tick, 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 on my roof. debris coming from that crap. Now, I love animals. I don't like humans. And those poor dogs of mine hid under their bed, that bed all night long. It was a sin. Couldn't get them to go outside to mess, do whatever. Now, I understand what Mark's saying, and I don't want trouble for the cops, but these damn people need to be arrested. If I did something wrong, I'm arrested. So why aren't they? And you know what kind of bothers me? I have no knowledge of this vapor thing that you guys talked about that's on the paper tonight, that you're going to talk about. It's something to do with the prosecutor wanted to prosecute the kids for selling batteries or vapes. I don't know what it was. But you know, you want to talk about things like that, but you don't want to talk about what happened July 4th with all these booms and booms and booms. It was so loud that I had to go down there 3 times to make sure the side of the barn was still there. Now, it was probably 2 weeks prior to the 4th of July. Late at night, it was about 9:30 or so, I called into the police because Renee got scared that there was somebody behind the barn shooting a shotgun off. 3, boom, boom, boom. Well, after listening to those fireworks that night, it was those fireworks. And I called officers, and 2 officers came with AR-15s. They were scared, and they were ready to go into this woods because I called them because somebody blew off some ordinances. Now, somebody could have gotten hurt that night because I called them about shotguns, and it was fireworks. You see what's going on? Please, arrest these people, okay? Arrest them, because when they call Penny and tell her they don't give a goddamn about her dog dying, something's wrong and disrespectful in this community. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Linder. Is there any other comments from anybody regarding the fireworks? Penny, or Ms. Chimino, please come on down and state your name for the record.
Penny Chimino, El Paso.
Can I get you to speak up just a little bit?
Yeah. So my whole idea on this is I've lived here since 1990. I don't remember it ever being like this except for the past few years. People didn't have these, what I call professional fireworks going off and up in the air. They didn't have them. Not to mention that they respected their neighbors. There was so much more respect back in 1990. I don't call these people fountain knights. I don't know where they came from, and I don't know where they get their attitude from, but that's not what fountain people are about. We're about respecting each other and trying to help each other. And yeah, I want them arrested too. I really do, because their attitude was not necessarily my dog, but my horse. They wanted my horse to die. That's not people I want to live with. That's not people I want to live in the same town with. Okay, I would never say that to somebody. But they said it to me over and over. I'm sure they're happy now. He passed away in March. I'm sure the fireworks helped with that because he had ulcers really bad. But what can I do? I get to live with people that don't care. They don't care about the veteran that lives next door to them. What do they tell him? I saw online a veteran saying, please stop. A veteran. They told him, go somewhere else. Go get a hotel somewhere else. Are you kidding me? It's upsetting. When a veteran goes online and is begging people to stop because it's hard for him, they say, put in earplugs, put on some music, do whatever you gotta do. I'm sorry, those big booms, he can't drown those out, and he told him that. And they do not care. And for those reasons, I have no mercy on them. I would like them arrested. I would like whatever done possible, because they're not fountain knights. They're not a part of this town. They're not with us, and I don't want to live with them.
Thank you, Ms. Chimino.
You know,
Mr. Linder, hang on just a second. We're going to give other people a turn to speak first, okay?
All I want to say, it didn't end. It's lasted till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else in the audience like to make any comments? Mr. Rick?
Chief, 2 questions. How many officers did we have on shift the evening of July 4th, and how does that compare to what we normally have on shift?
We had 10 on shift, which is about 2 extra.
Okay.
And it wasn't necessarily, and I'll be completely transparent, Councilman Rick. It wasn't that we had a whole pile of calls stacking up that we had to go to. It was a conscious decision by the officers not to put themselves in a situation that was going to end up in likely arrests and uses of force for a holiday where people were celebrating. And I do understand, and I wish Al had stuck around so I could give him a couple of answers on his questions, but, you know, I have to look, and our officers have to look at officer safety, and what's, Chief Heber would always say is the juice worth the squeeze. In this particular instance, it was not. It would have ended up in a lot more complaints on officers rolling in there with force and arresting people that, by the way, we can't do. It's not an arrestable offense. And this is just a battle we're going to fight every year, and we're going to have to figure out different ways to combat it. You know, and one of the final points I wanted to make is, in order to have a successful summons, we had to have citizens willing to sign the complaint. Of the 21 calls we had come into the police department, 11 of those folks were unwilling to sign. Therefore, if an officer didn't witness the act, we had no independent people willing to sign the complaint, we have no complaint. And all we can do is send those warning letters out, and that's what we're going to do. And if I have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
So I know in our police system, we have different priorities. For example, you know, a murder, attempted murder would be priority 1. Did we have a lot of those higher priority calls for the night of July 4th?
We had, and I won't even say for the whole night, for the time frame of, say, 8 p.m. till about 11 p.m., we had 3 priority calls. 2 of those calls actually took up 6 officers. 6 out of those 12, one was a heavy disturbance up at Walmart, up on Venatucci, and another was a suicidal subject. Those require a lot of manpower and a lot of intense, very acute response at that point. So, you know, and I am 100% sympathetic to Penny and the veterans, and I was watching Facebook, and I was outside looking at all the fireworks, and I have 2 veterans in my neighborhood that have PTSD, and I really wish Al would have stayed. I'll call him tomorrow. You know, it is disrespectful. It is disturbing that exactly what you said, Penny, is they didn't care. And they don't care that the police are there. And they don't care that there's an ordinance and a state law against fireworks. We do the best we can. We'll come up with different game plan for next year and just pray that nobody gets hurt and nobody's house burns down.
So, and last question, I apologize.
Yes, sir.
We had talked beforehand about using a drone.
Right.
Did we get to do that that night?
We did not. We elected not to. After talking with the drone operator, we felt it'd be unsafe to put the drone up for the amount of fireworks that were going off. It was entirely possible that the drone could have gotten damaged or shot down. And that's a reality, and I wasn't willing to risk a $25,000 drone to identify houses that we identified just with our own eyes and binoculars through these 21 complaints. We know where they were. So we elected not to put the drone up. I don't think it would have given us too much of an advantage of things we didn't already know.
Okay, that's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other council members that have any questions or comments? Anybody else from the audience or online? Okay, please come down. Oh. And you'll have to state your name again for the record.
It's okay, it's Kimberly Ostrander. I have a quick question. So I called the police department.
Ma'am, the mic's not on, and then if you're going to talk to the police department, I need you to have your voice towards the mic. There you go, you got it.
Okay.
Okay, and then make
thanks.
sure your voice stays towards the mic so we can record it.
Okay. Question. So I've called the police before, and they've said, are you willing to sign a complaint? Sure, I'll sign it. But my question is this, what are the repercussions? Like, why would someone be afraid to sign a complaint? I'm assuming the police department is not walking up saying, your neighbor Jim Jones complained that you were doing this. Is that right? Or why would someone be afraid to sign a complaint?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so the order of events goes, the call comes in, the dispatchers or the call takers will ask, are you willing to sign the complaint? And they
Yes.
triage the call from there.
Okay.
If the citizen says yes, they actually sign, you actually take my ticket and you sign it with your name. Ultimately, what that could mean is you, the citizen, would have to come to municipal court if the person that got the ticket decided to fight the ticket, where you would have to say, yes, I saw that person lighting off fireworks and I signed that complaint.
I see.
That's-
So
it's-
that's why they wouldn't do it.
Because they're afraid of retribution or retaliation. That was the resounding theme from the citizens that weren't willing to sign, is they didn't want to be retaliated against for complaining against their neighbors. And I understand that. It's probably a reality. I don't know. I know my neighbors well enough to know that, well, we didn't shoot off fireworks that were illegal, but I know my neighbors well enough that I don't feel like I would be retaliated against. But that's not true in all cases. There are neighbors that may retaliate against other neighbors for complaining.
Well, I would agree with that because I have neighbors like that. But I realize this isn't the forum for that. It's someplace else. But it seems like there has to be a better system for this. I mean, I don't know what it is,
Right.
but there has to be a better system.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, here's what I would say. I call this a success in the fact that we had no injuries, we had no fires, and generally speaking, everybody had a good time on the 4th. The problem is it was against the law on most of what was happening with the fireworks. And so you take that for what it's worth. That's my opinion. I feel it's successful that everybody went home safe and nothing happened in the city.
Well, my focus was on the complaint issue.
Right.
I won't even get into the firework thing.
Right.
Because I mean, it is what it is, and it happens every single year, exactly the same way. I don't have a solution for that, but the complaint seems like there should be a better way of doing this so that people are not afraid to, like, you know, they shouldn't be afraid.
I mean, there's a bit of anonymity that we can provide, but as in all cases, and Troy here can certainly chime in on this, whenever there's a case before a court or a judge and a prosecutor, the accused has a right to have the person complaining against them be before them.
I understand.
And so I completely understand. And maybe I'll try to be creative next year and think of a different way that we can still provide a summons and maybe provide some anonymity to the complainant too. I'll try to think of some ways. I appreciate your question.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. One more question about fireworks.
It's not a question, it's a comment.
A comment, yeah, concern, yes. And please state your name for the record.
My name is Luann.
And turn the mic on for us here.
It is on,
Oh,
I
there it is.
think.
They just magically brought it on for us, okay.
My name is Luann Roby. I've lived in this town, city of Fountain, for 58 years. We had lots of fireworks. I would like to thank the Fountain Police Department for doing their job that night. No one got raped. No one got killed. No child got abused. No drunk beat on his wife. If you want to stop fireworks in your community, any of what is bothering you, get to know your neighbors. Be your neighbor's friend. Talk to them. Tell them, I don't want to call the cops on you, but enough's enough. I will. And then don't sit back and be chicken to take a stand in a courtroom to stop it. I had fireworks in an apartment building. I live in an older mobile home park. That's what I came into. But now I know what the code enforcement, I know which way I'm going now after sitting back here listening. I got another plan. But I live in a small mobile home park over here. I have an apartment building here, an apartment building there, an apartment building back there. I had probably 52 drunks and fireworks going off. It started at 6 o'clock, And I was told by code enforcement my dogs could not bark for more than 15 minutes at a time. Okay, you tell a dog about fireworks. I walked across the street because I know Fountain's busy. They have miles and miles and miles to protect. Miles. And I told the little drunk boys and girls, I'm done. I'm willing to go to jail tonight, children, are you? Stop. We're going to have a fire here, and we're not going to get it put out quick enough to stop all the children that's going to die in this mobile home park in these apartment buildings. So while you sit there and criticize the Fountain Police Department, I remember when there was only 2 cops on and 1 chief. You didn't get raped that night. You didn't get murdered. Your house wasn't on fire. Stand up and become a community and talk to your neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. I think that winds up the fireworks unless anybody, I'm not seeing anybody else in the audience. Okay. All right, that takes us on to the consent agenda, item 7. All items listed under the consent agenda will be considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of council. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight, items A and B. What would council like to do with the consent agenda? Councilmember Rick?
Move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Councilmember Hinton?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, motion carried.
Okay, that takes us on to item 8A, old business. Second reading of ordinance number 1789, an ordinance amending definition of electronic smoking device in section 5.36.030, defining terms of chapter 5.36, tobacco product retail licensing of Title V, business tax licenses and regulations of the Fountain Municipal Code to expressly include vaping devices. And it says, Ms. Parker, I do not see her here. Oh, I'm sorry, you're hiding behind your boss's head. Okay. All righty. Okay, I'll stretch it out so you get back in time. Okay, all righty. And just to have some clarification here, this is an existing ordinance that already exists on our books with the already existing penalties for it. The purpose of this is to just add the vaping devices into this so that you can prosecute and hopefully educate people under 21 that are using a vaping device. We're not making any changes to the ordinance in general. We're just, besides adding on that vaping device, correct?
Yes, in essence, we're simply adding some language to the already existing definition of electronic smoking device. This ordinance, as you mentioned, was motivated in large part by concerns directly raised by the Fort Carson Student Council based on their personal observations of increasing usage of vape pens at schools and their desire to address this issue. There are no changes to the ordinance, but Officer Sanchez, who is present at meetings with the Student Council on this project, along with the Dean of Students, Luann Guiden, who unfortunately could not be present tonight, but Officer Sanchez is present tonight should the City Council have any questions for him. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any questions for Officer Sanchez? Are there any comments from anyone in the audience? Seeing none, what would council like to do with this? I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Were you making a motion, Mr. Gordon, or did you have a question?
Question for
Okay.
Officer Sanchez.
Okay, I didn't see it. Okay, thank you.
Sergeant Sanchez, can you please convey to us your discussion with the Dean of Students?
Yes, sir. So we've met countless times. The school district is going to be revamping their education piece. The reason they're unable to make it tonight is because they're actually wanting to present to their board. They've asked me tonight to say that I could get that date if you would like to come and hear their presentation to their board, and if after that fact, if you want to hear it for themselves, they can actually come and present to you as well on a later date. But that conversation mostly is about educating our students. What we're looking for is the student that's disregarding those several attempts to educate that harmfulness and the fact that it's affecting our student body. So this piece that we're working along with Ms. Parker is going to allow us to give us a little bit more teeth to have a say in this. As of right now, the way the statute reads, my SROs aren't able to get involved. But after today, if this vote is, we actually have some teeth to actually have a say in what happens next.
So the Dean of Students is making a presentation for the board, to the board, of education?
No, sir, it'll be the principal
Okay.
of Bound for Carson High School to the board about their progress or their steps on discipline moving forward.
So-
It's more of an education piece.
So the board itself hasn't heard the presentation and has not made a position one way or the other?
Correct. They have not heard the presentation yet. It'll be in mid-August.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. While I understand what Krista has to say, I am personally a little bit reluctant to go forward until the school board itself has had an opportunity to comment and give us feedback on what it is. I would like us to consider tabling this motion until after the school board has had an opportunity to give us feedback. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that it's just an opinion you're stating, and you're not stating a motion. I just want to make sure that we're clarifying that. Okay. All righty, Councilmember Hinton.
I want to be clear, I'm stating my opinion too as well. I actually agree with Councilman Rick. It's my understanding, I thought that they had already been talked about this and they were aware of that. I'm not comfortable, just my opinion, not comfortable moving forward and improving anything moving forward.
Council?
Councilmember Estes?
I actually am okay with moving forward because this is not just affecting the schools. All it is a clarification on a definition. It's not changing the consequences to the students. It's just helping clarify these newer devices. And so there's no different consequences. It's just helping with the definition.
So let me ask, okay, go ahead.
Councilmember Hinton?
So let me ask, so if the board comes back and says, no, that's not something we want to go with, and then we approve it, then that makes it for a muddy situation. In my opinion.
Well, in my opinion, it's the fact that it's already on the ordinance. You're just clarifying the definition. It already says electronic smoking device. It's just clarifying a little bit more.
I think we actually would be giving, this is my opinion, would be giving a tool to the school to have in their presentation so that when the school starts next year, they are fully prepared to educate the students on an ordinance that has been passed. And so I'm fully comfortable with moving forward. We operate as two separate entities. We do not operate, they don't ask us for advice on what they're doing at their school. We don't necessarily need to ask advice for what we're doing as a city. We've made a commitment to this city for not tolerating devices being sold and used by people under the age of, 21? I think it got raised to 21. Yeah. And so I'd like to, I'm comfortable with moving forward with, I do have, I see your hand there, but yeah. So Councilmember Hinton.
Yeah, well, thank you, Madam Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Estes on clarifying that. So I have a little bit better understanding, so thank you for sharing.
Sure. And Mr. Trainer?
Yeah, thank you. The only thing I was going to add wasn't specific to this change of the definition, but just relative to the school district's involvement. The school district actually, when we went through and created this tobacco ordinance, they took a leadership role. This was something that was really important to them, so they partnered up with the county health department with the creation of this and really took a leadership role in creating that in the first place because it was so important for them. This ordinance was important for them in the first place. Now, that's not specific to this minor amendment, but I just wanted to give you at least a little bit of background on the district's involvement in the overall, the broader adoption of that ordinance in the past.
Council?
And I did have, did you have some more, Mr. Sanchez, office?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to do a little bit of clarifying to your questions. Just to echo what you're saying, this is a completely two separate things. By changing or adding this definition to our ordinance, this allows our regular patrol officer who comes in contact with our juveniles on the street to have a say. As of right now, if they come into contact with our juveniles, it can get kind of messy when it gets into the courtroom. When we've already identified this problem for a while. What we did see, though, is I have a bright student council come into me and said, hey, we also see this. What can we do to help? And that's when they put that presentation together that was so well written, and they did come today. What our hope is not to change what we're doing already in the school. Their presentation is more of the graduated discipline, so it's just not a change. They are very for this. They're moving with it with us. They've been with us the entire time. But their holdout is they want to present it to their board, who they answer to first before they speak out of turn. So what I'm hoping you hear today is there is two separate entities here, and we're not relying this solely for School District 8, because this will also affect those that attend Mesa Ridge High School, Genitel Middle School. So what I'm hoping that is something that we can help service our youth better. And working along with Ms. Parker and our municipal corps, we can actually help our youth better. And that's what I'm hoping to get from this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did we have any students here tonight that wanted to say anything? Do you have any students here tonight that wanted to say anything? Okay. Okay. Okay.
So-
Is Miss Johnson here? I owe you a coin. So at the end, I'll get that to you, okay? All right, okay. All
So,
right.
Council, first off, I just wanted to apologize. I did not mean to give the misimpression that the board of the school had approved this, but rather I was simply attempting to convey to council that in my meetings with Officer Sanchez and the student council on this project that they had brought to me regarding their concern about this increased use of vape pens that they'd observed at their school, that the dean of students had been present at those meetings and appeared to me to give the impression of support of this. But obviously I do not presume to speak on her behalf, but that was my impression of her at those meetings, and she was present at those meetings. As well as Officer Sanchez. And as Officer Sanchez clarified, and he is correct, this is not limited to vape pens that are utilized at schools, but rather is an existing ordinance that is applicable throughout Fountain. And so officers who encounter a violation of this ordinance, whether in school or outside of school, or whether at the Fort Carson High School or at the middle school, whereas during our presentation at the last meeting, the Fort Carson Student Council discussed that there is in fact some issues with this at the middle school as well. It would not be limited to those schools. And in fact, it currently is not limited to those schools. A violation of related to the electronic smoking device is currently prosecutable. This is simply clarifying and adding some language to the existing definition. There is no change to the existing penalty associated with such a violation. It is, like I said, just a clarification and an addition of language to the already existing definition, which is utilized in connection with a violation. So are there any other questions that I can answer for the council tonight?
Yes, Councilmember Hinton.
Thank you, Ms. Parker, and thank you, Sergeant Sanchez, for clarifying that for me. Now I'm a little bit more educated and smart on the matter. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, that's why we sometimes have to have a little bit of discussion and hold on there, so which is fine. Okay, are there any comments or questions from anyone in the audience? Online?
No questions online, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what he said. Thank you.
No
Okay.
questions online.
All right. All right. Mr. Councilmember Applegate.
Yeah, I move to approve ordinance number 1789 on second reading.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Applegate. Do we have a second? Councilmember Hinton.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on ordinance number 1789. Is there any further discussion from council? Seeing Mr. Applegate, your mic is still on. Did you have another comment? Okay, please vote.
Five yes, one no. Councilmember Rick voting no. Motion carried.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. That takes us on to item 8B, second reading of ordinance 1790, an ordinance amending Fountain Municipal Code, creating a hearing officer and authorizing the hearing officer to act as the local liquor licensing authority and to hear various appeals and variance requests. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council. This is second reading. There's been no changes, but I just wanted to remind the council and highlight the significant changes, basically eliminating our Board of Adjustment and replacing the Board of Adjustment with a hearing officer, and also replacing City Council with a hearing officer as the local liquor authority. And then, Bezzy, do you mind flipping one more to kind of the minor changes that it took to the code to get there? I don't think I remembered to show the slide last time, so I wanted to put this up there as well. It was in the packet. But those are kind of the minor changes that it took to create this ordinance. So I'll leave it at that and answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, are there any questions for anyone on council? I actually do have a question on page 6. I don't know if you have a copy of it?
Pull it up.
Okay.
Page 6 of the ordinance?
Over Exhibit B.
Okay, I'm there.
2.28.010 created.
Yes.
If you read through it, it says that, in previous part of it, it says the judge would be appointed as the hearing officer. But then in this item, it says that the city attorney shall be vested with the authority to select an alternate to serve from time to time as the hearing officer in the event that the hearing officer is unable to fulfill their duties. Would you, the city attorney, fill in as that person? Because I would see that could potentially be a conflict of interest if you were had to charge the person or something. Or?
Yes, yeah, and I would not fill that role. And so the way that it's written is that the hearing officer shall be appointed by the city council. And that hearing officer may not be an employee of the city, with the exception of the municipal judge may be the hearing officer if the council appoints them.
Okay.
And then if there's a problem with that, and kind of a more emergent situation, the city attorney would be able to appoint somebody to fill in to be that hearing officer if the situation called for it.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify
So
that.
that would be, it would be an appointment that I could do to somebody else to step in that role.
Okay, I wanted to make sure we weren't going to have a conflict where you were stepping in and.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, that just
That's
seemed
correct,
kind of, okay. And then, so we're being really, really specific on what we're doing these for in terms of the liquor licenses. And there is some fire stuff in there too. And then just to verify again, if they don't like the decision of whoever the hearing officer is, then they appeal to the state, not to city council, is that correct?
That's correct. And it would be an appeal to the district court.
The district court, okay, the county, okay, county or state?
Yeah, well, there's county court and there's district court.
Right.
They're in the same building, but it would be to the district court.
Okay, and then just so if we have a brand-new business or an existing business deciding to sell liquor, and they have to do the survey and all that kind of stuff, will those still come to council, or will those go to the hearing officer?
Those would come to the hearing officer. Sylvia, I'm looking at you. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct. It would go to the hearing officer.
That's like really the only piece I'm concerned about, is I think that's really the citizens' chance to come to council if they don't want it in their neighborhood and express themselves. And I think it's going to cause some confusion, and I think that's a pretty big change. So sell me on that part of it.
Well, so it would still be, in that situation.
And I don't have a problem with the renewals, the changes, and all that kind of stuff, but.
So in that situation, Sylvia, it would be still a public hearing?
It is still a public hearing. It's
And what
a
are the notice
requirement by the state
requirements?
that it's a public hearing. So if it's a new license, that location for the establishment must be posted to explain where the public hearing is going to be, where written comments could be sent to. It's done currently. And then there's also publication, a state requirement that it has to go in the local newspaper 10 days prior to the hearing. And so everything that we do now that is a state requirement would still be the same exact way. It would just go in front of a hearing officer rather than council.
But then I think sort of the argument that you're making, Mayor, would be that, that hearing would be certainly less well-attended than a regular city council meeting. And, you know, the notice requirements would be the same, and the opportunity to appear and voice your opinion would be the same. It's just harder to publicize it on a non-city council night. And so, I mean, I think that's would be a valid point, I suppose, on that, even though the opportunity to show up at that public hearing would be the same. It just naturally isn't going to be as well attended in reality. So, and again, I'm not here to sell you one way or the other, but that would sort of be the argument, and the argument for it would be that, you know, it's a process that is going to be more smooth and streamlined, and a hearing officer that's got a little bit more expertise to evaluate those requests. So that's what I'll say.
Madam Mayor, I might add to that. In the way that hearings are scheduled, because City Council meets twice a month, those hearings, of course, needed to be scheduled around the City Council meetings. If we have a hearing officer and it's not a set schedule, it actually gives us a little bit more leniency when we when we give the direction to the applicant to get those surveys. At that time, we will know when the hearing is going to be. And so we could actually put that on the survey to let them know, anybody who says, no, I don't want it, just so you understand, this is the date of the hearing. Please feel free to attend.
So there's going to be direct notice to people in the vicinity.
Yes, direct notice to those who say yes or no.
Right, and the only reason I'm kind of belaboring this is we haven't had this happen for a while, but we have had times where there have been existing bars that no longer exist and somebody new comes in, and the citizens have come in from the neighborhood and said, I want to make sure you ride herd on this one. I was tired of having my sleep disturbed and a lot of fights going on and the mess down the street and having to clean up constantly after them. I think they need that right to express that to us, the elected officials, to know what's going on. And so anyways, I'm not going to belabor my point. I do have a couple other council members up here with points. Because I can't see the screen, I don't know who rang in first, Councilmember Hinton or Councilmember Rick.
Yeah, just a comment or scenario. So what if a citizen comes to city council and expresses a concern that they didn't go to a public hearing and they wanted to address that at the council? What if this is passed, what would be our recourse at that time to have a discussion with them?
So depending on the timing of it, I think you would direct them to attend the public hearing in front of the hearing officer.
Okay.
And if it was after the hearing officer had taken action, there wouldn't be much recourse.
Okay.
Just like if they missed a city council meeting where you took action, and then if they felt something was done, you know, with sort of, I think that the standard would be abuse of discretion, right? If they thought the hearing officer abused their discretion, then they could appeal to the district court.
Got it.
So those would be the only real two options.
All right, got it. Thank you, Troy.
Okay, Councilmember Rick?
So full disclosure, I discussed this item with the city clerk. So Ms. Huffman, please confirm for me, you've been the clerk or deputy clerk for 22 years, is that correct?
24 years, sir.
24 years? Mm-hmm. And in the 24 years you've been here, there's been one applicant that's been denied
That's
a
correct.
license. Okay, so one applicant in 24 years is not a lot of complaints. Secondly, when we talked about how a license gets approved, there are certain criteria that the state has laid out that says if you meet this criteria, you get a license. If you don't meet the criteria, you don't get a license. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's a public hearing, so it's a quasi-judicial matter, and so there's framework on approval or denial of a license.
Okay, so we can't just say, this guy smells, I don't want him to have a license. We don't have that sort of discretion as a council.
That's correct, sir. You don't.
Okay. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rick. Is there any, Councilmember S? Oh, okay, saw you moving your mic, I didn't want, okay. All righty. Any further discussion from anybody? Any questions from anyone in the audience? We do have a comment from the audience. Please come down and state your name for the record.
Connie Weisenhunt. My question is for you, Troy. I was wondering if you can explain how does the person who is the hearing officer get picked? What kind of knowledge do they have and training do they have? And when somebody has a complaint on a decision they already made and appears in front of them again, how does that second appeal get, decided by the same person? I don't know. Does that make sense, what I'm asking? I'm just asking, how do you pick that person that they're non-judgmental and fair to everybody? And if they've made a decision on something and they're coming back to them to appeal the decision, will it be heard fairly? Or at that point, they come to city council?
No. So, and that's, I know I'm really belaboring the point, but I just want to make sure everybody truly understands what the big change, this is kind of a big change. I want to make sure everybody truly understands it, and that's why I'm kind of belaboring it. I'm not saying whether I'm going to vote yes or no. I want to make sure this is thoroughly educated with everybody here and has the questions answered. And so that's a really, really good question, because this is a big change of policy in how something is processed and done. Good, doesn't mean it's good or bad, it just means it's a big change.
So to answer the first question, the person that gets picked, and the reason that it's not an employee of the city of Fountain is we want somebody to apply those state criteria fairly and without any biases. And so the person that we would pick either is going to have some legal knowledge in applying statutes. And 99 times out of 100, that's going to be a lawyer. So it would probably be an independent attorney with some degree of knowledge and speciality in this area to apply those standards fairly and without prejudice or bias. And depending on the situation with municipal court, that could potentially be our municipal judge, but it could be an independent attorney as well. That's not necessarily a requirement as written in the ordinance that it be an attorney, but that's the idea, is somebody with that level of knowledge and experience to be able to apply the state law to the individual applicant. The second part of your question is what happens if somebody appeals them and has, so if that hearing officer denies an application by applying that code, the only recourse that person has to go to the district court, to go to a different judge, at the county courthouse. And so they theoretically would never see that hearing officer again. I mean, maybe, if they got that application denied, they don't open up that bar and they buy a different one, and then submit a different application, maybe they would see that same hearing officer. But in that situation, and that's why you pick somebody that's an independent, it's not a grudge, it's not a personal thing, it's application of those rules. And if they thought there was a bias on the second one, then they could appeal the second one, and that judge could determine if there was an abuse of discretion in that case. So there's always checks and balances.
Right. And I think to go a little bit deeper on the Board of Adjustments, which has been a citizen board of 3 people, it's always, if you get somebody in that you really know them, or you know their grandma, or you know their aunt or something, and that makes it a little bit awkward, and there might be a little bit of bias there. So I really like the Board of Adjustment idea, because they're going to know the law and not just have somebody who doesn't want to go against somebody else. So anyways, but, okay, is there any further discussion among council? Anybody in the audience? Okay, seeing none, what would council like to do with this? Councilmember Estes.
I move to approve ordinance number 1790 on second reading.
Councilmember Rick.
Second the motion.
Okay, is there any further deliberation? I learned that new word at CML, deliberate after a motion. It's got to get my brain, right? Alrighty. Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you very much. That takes us on to item 9A, new business. Item A, consideration of items removed from the consent agenda. There were none. Resolution numbered B, resolution number 23-027, a resolution amending the appropriation of the fiscal year FY 2023 budgeted funds. Mr. Lewis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Lewis, Finance Director for City of Fountain. As you are aware, you adopted a budget for 2023 on November 15th, 2022. And since that time, a number of necessary expenditures have been identified by staff, as well as some additional revenue that has been received with corresponding required expenditures. These primarily include the additional public safety staffing in accordance with commitments made in the 2B ballot measure, and a CDBG grant and requirements with that grant for ADA improvements. City staff is therefore recommending formal approval by City Council to amend the budgets for the 2023 general, water, electric, and insurance funds for those additional items. This supplementary budget request is a standard process and best practice for ensuring that only items appropriated by you are spent. And the recommended items are on the spreadsheet that you have in Exhibit A. And I will go over briefly, not all of those items, but the summary of the specific items that I think you'd be concerned with. If you could go to the next slide, please. So you see here that, well, as you're aware, 2B revenue is supposed to bring in about 1.7 million this year. So we took half of that, and because not all of it has come in yet, most of it has because it's property tax. So we're saying that 850,000 of revenue at the very least will be coming in, as well as $129,574 of a CDBG grant. Now, what we are asking to be spent is $4,500 for a easement to purchase some land on the Indiana project, right there at the corner where it's going to be widened. $3,200 for an appraisal on the Lorraine building. $7,000 as the general fund portion of the cost allocation study, and then some items with tech services on maintenance service contracts. The remaining items, with the exception of a few I'll discuss in a minute, have to do with 3 new police officers for the last 6 months. Actually, by the time they're hired, it'll be less than the last 6 months of this year. So salaries and wages, as well as various computer equipment and minor equipment, uniforms, etc. And an additional 3 new firefighter paramedics, along not only their fully burdened cost of salaries and wages, but their uniforms, firefighting supplies, etc. And part of that was discussed by Chief Graham when he went through an update on the fire department. So I won't go into all the details there. They are sitting there on that sheet. If you could go to the next slide, please. So jumping down to the $100,000 item, that is for improvements to repair the foundation of Fire Station number 3 that has been depleted through just ground movement, water, etc. And so the foundation needs to be repaired. I mentioned the grant from CDBG. We are required to spend a 10% match. So we will be spending $141,982 for the Bonita Drive ADA improvements, and that includes the city match for labor and materials. There is a request from the Streets Department for a $12,513 tree chipper, and in addition, we would be spending $12,000 to remodel the Fountain Valley News building to make it more usable. So in total, in the general fund, we would be spending $925,780. And due to the fact that we do have that revenue coming in on 2B, we're indicating an increase in the restricted to-be reserves of $248,740. And of course, that will go up once we get that additional revenue through the end of 2023. And then these expenditures indicate a decrease in the unrestricted fund, the unassigned reserves for the general fund of $194,946. So before I go to the other three funds, I'll stop there and see if there's any questions on those items.
Councilmember Rick, one question.
I can't have two. You can take mine.
Too short. Too short.
Question for Bob. The tree chipper, is that just a normal tree chipper, or is that the big monster job that we used when we had all the trees fall down?
That was just a regular tree chipper that'll it'll chip wood up to about a 12-inch diameter. So the chippers that were, repeat that. That is just for a regular chipper. That'll go up to about a 12-inch diameter. The chippers that we brought in to dispose of the dump that we had during the storm, those are almost $1 million a piece. So I can definitely quote one of those if you'd like.
That's
but,
okay.
I thought that was a little bit out of our purview.
I'll take the 12,000.
Can you tell the citizens again how you're watching their budget?
No, 12,000 is fine.
Thank you.
I was just teasing you. If you have two questions, you can have two questions. All right. Okay. Any other questions from anybody? Anybody in the audience? Good. Okay.
Okay, if we could then go to the next slide. For the water fund, there was a trailer that was damaged from hail, so insurance proceeds for that damaged trailer would be coming in to cover the $10,000 cost of the trailer. In addition, we are going to allocate $3,500 of the cost allocation study to the water fund. So we'll have a $3,500 decrease in net position between these two items with the water fund. With the electric fund, we're also allocating $3,500 to other professional services for the cost allocation study, So basically what we've done is 50% towards the general fund, 25% of the cost allocation study to the water fund, and 25% to the electric fund. So that decrease in that position for the electric fund would also be $3,500. Last but not least, in the insurance fund, we want to, out of the wellness line item, spend $40,000 for physicals for fire department personnel. And with that, I'd ask for any questions that you might have on those three funds.
You kind of have a reputation tonight, so I'm just making sure. Okay. We're teasing, right? Okay. All right.
Okay,
Anybody in
hearing
the
no
audience have any
questions?
questions on the presentation? All right. Seeing none, what would council like to do with this? I can't see who, can I see, please, the screen? Thank you. Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, I move to approve resolution number 23-027.
Okay, Councilmember Rick?
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on resolution number 23-027. Is there any further, I lost the word, Sylvia. Not discussion, I just lost the word, I just said it. Deliberation. Deliberation. Okay, deliberation, any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, item 9C.
Mayor and City Council, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to kind of get everybody
That's okay.
moving along. Thank you so much. Okay, item 9C, resolution number 23-028, a resolution authorizing Schmidt Construction to provide professional road maintenance on the 3 projects throughout the city. Mr. McDonald, it says 5 minutes. Can you do it in 3? Absolutely. All right, Sylvia, turn the timer on. No, I'm kidding.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Tonight I bring forward the resolution, again, authorizing Schmidt Construction to provide our paving for this year. We've got 3 projects on the agenda right now. This is the first phase of our resurfacing for this summer, the actual resurfacing and repaving, which were South Main Street, Fountain Mesa, a section of Fountain Mesa Road from Lake Avenue north to Cali Entrada, and then East Ohio Avenue from the railroad tracks all the way to Vern Street, which is about up by Metcalf Park. And so this will be the first phase. The second phase will be the chip seal contract that I'll bring before you in a couple of weeks here once we get closer. Again, this is kind of I believe the second year of the extension of the contract with Schmidt Construction. They've been providing reliable services at a fair price. I've gone out and done some second checking this year just to make sure those prices are still at what we need them to be, and they are still cheaper than where we can get everywhere else for the level of service that we are currently receiving from that company. So with that in mind, staff recommends moving forward and awarding the 2023 pavement resurfacing project to Schmidt Construction in the amount of $568,522. That money does include a 5% contingency fee, just in case we run into anything. All my bids include, I put extra in there just in case when we start milling a roadway, all of a sudden we run into a giant issue under the pavement that we don't see beforehand. I don't foresee having to use that contingency. I usually have enough built into the bid, but just in case we run into something messy, especially with the rains and the water that we run into this year, I'm hoping we don't run into any issues when we start putting a milling machine on some of these roadways. With that, any questions?
Okay, Councilmember Applegate, did you have a question, or? Okay, all righty. And Councilmember Corey?
Maybe I missed it in there. Commission dates. They put commission dates on those 3 projects, correct?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
There's commission dates on those 3 projects, correct?
We actually have a pre-construction meeting tomorrow. We're hoping to get them in town within the next 3 weeks. I'm trying to get the paving projects done before school starts in August, and Schmidt is on board with that, so we're really trying to push this ahead as quick as possible.
Perfect.
You bet.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, any other questions from anyone on council? Anybody in the audience? Okay, seeing none, what would council like to do with this? Councilmember Hinton?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 23-028.
Okay, Councilmember Rick?
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, that takes us on to correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. Mr. Trainer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have anything for tonight.
Nothing for me either.
I do have a question for you, Troy.
Oh, sure.
So on the resolution that we just passed, ordinance that we just passed, for the hearing officer, and you said council appoints that. When
Yes.
can we expect that to come back? Because I know BOA with the Board of Adjustment part, they were really kind of wanting to move fairly quickly.
Correct. It was actually my plan to have a kind of a broader, more informal discussion at our retreat this weekend
Okay.
to
Alrighty.
discuss that. So my plan is to discuss that with you all, kind of what you'd like to see for that hearing officer, and then bring a resolution at the next council meeting to appoint a person.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Thank you. Chief Christiani, you said there was a second part.
Yes, I have some news about Beacon. I'm finally able to give an update on some stats. We only have the last 2 weeks of June available because our Beacon clinicians and officers went to a conference, which was very beneficial for them. So we only have 2 weeks here to report, but we had 14 clients that they visited. All 14 of them were kept out of jail, which is one of our goals. And of those 14, 3 of them requested no contact, so they weren't serviced. 9 of them were treated in their homes or where the police and the clinicians contacted them. And only 1 had to be transported. But in total, we were able to send back 15 patrol officers back into service because of the Beacon unit, for a total of 14 calls. So you can pretty much double those for an entire month. So approximately 30 calls with approximately 30 officers that'll put back on the street. And our second Beacon, Commander Racine has reminded me they will start about 2 weeks from now. So we'll be back up fully staffed with our Beacon clinicians in a couple of weeks. So we're very proud to get that going again.
Great, thank you. I know I used to really enjoy getting those reports, so I hope we're going to get back to being
Yeah,
able
I'm
to-
very happy to give those, and I will continue to update.
Well, I love getting them in writing so that when people are asking about them, we can kind of refer back to them.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'll
easily.
send you an email. I've got all the stats here. Yes, I will forward that to you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief Graham,
Nothing additional, thank you.
thank you. Streets?
I do have one other thing I just want to bring up. I did receive today an initial study from our bridge damage report in reference to the storms. The only bridge that was brought up as probably needs some immediate attention is the bridge over Old Pueblo Road and Jimmy Camp down by Ventana. We've had almost 7 feet of scour from the last report, which is significant. We are trying to pull up plans now for exactly how deep those piers go to see how far they are still down to bedrock, hopefully. But I'll be working diligently on that over the next few days to try to get cost and design plans brought up as soon as possible, along with what it's going to take to get that repaired.
Can you explain for people that might be listening in, what is scour, why it's important?
Absolutely. So all the concrete piers that support the bridge, support our bridges, or actually support that bridge, because there are several different designs of our bridges in the city of Fountain. That one is supported by concrete piers that go deep, should go down to bedrock. Those piers were at a certain level when it was built. As storms go through and that water rushes around those piers underneath there, they create turbulence basically on the backside of those piers, which starts eroding the material that is supporting those piers. A few feet of scour is pretty normal. With the flows that we had underneath those bridges from the past storm events, like I said, it went from the last time we had the bridge inspected, we were actually working on plans to fix the scour. It was about 1.5 or 2 feet of scour where it had eroded about 2 feet of material away from those piers. That is now down to about 7 or 8 feet of scour just in this one event. So that is very concerning for us. I've talked to Ben Sheets, the engineer, and we'll be working as soon as possible here to see what the issue is, see if there's any safety issues. The people that did the inspection, they do not believe right now there are any safety concerns with the continued function of the bridge, but another storm like we had before could cause some significant problems for that infrastructure. So we'll be working as quick as possible to come up with some solutions.
And Scott, is that covered by insurance?
Well, it depends. Flooding is always a challenge when it comes to insurance. We'll be reaching out to CIRSA for sure, but it's hard to do that until we get all this information.
We are including that. We've been in discussions with FEMA and the state, and it will definitely be included in those costs for recovery. So that is something we're working on with the state and feds to possibly declare that state of emergency statewide based on the storms that occurred. So that is another avenue that we're going to be pursuing to hopefully receive some funding when it occurs.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lewis?
Nothing more, Mayor, thank you.
Ms. Martinez?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
IT?
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor.
Okay, City Clerk?
Nothing other than I will be requesting executive tonight.
I'm getting through as fast as I can, Sylvia. Okay, I'm going to start on my right here tonight, see if there's anything from any council members. Councilmember Applegate?
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Estes?
I just want to say that I sit on the watershed, the Fountain Creek Watershed District, and a couple weeks ago, we were able to take a tour of the Mile High Flood District. And so I'm going to be talking with Scott and Todd about maybe some potential funding there, and not just for the flood district, but something that we might be using for stormwater and stuff. So that was a very fascinating tour, so I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilmember Hinton?
Yes, I just have to make an announcement. The Military Order of the Purple Heart is going to be having an open house on August 5th from noon to 4, and that's Military Order Purple Heart, Chapter 423, which is located here in the city of Fountain, 2 Carson Circle. It's open to the public, and there's going to be free burgers, hot dogs, and barbecue, so please come out, and there's going to be some entertainment as well.
Are you the entertainment?
No,
Oh,
I'm just going to be eating.
Councilmember Corey?
Can I bring this up? This was on my desk, I was gonna say, so.
I think it's just for us, not for the public.
Oh, it's not for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, rodeo this week and a fair. So rodeo starts tonight, goes through Saturday, and then Saturday through the next, so 15th through the 22nd is the El Paso County Fair out in Calhoun, so fun times, fun happenings in the county.
Councilmember Rick?
Want to thank Chief Graham and Fire Marshal Gates for taking time to explain to me some of their processes and procedures today. Appreciate you taking time to do that. Also want to thank the street department for all their work on clearing out some of the blockages we had during the flooding. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. CML was great. I think we all learned a lot. It was always interesting to go up there, and so I thank everybody for the city that went, and thank you for the city for allowing us to go. I never saw Troy or Sylvia. They tell me they were there, but we are all passing in the night somewhere, but anyway, so it's just kind of funny how you can be so close and never see anybody. Anyway, so it was a really good time. The Sursa one was absolutely, the Sursa lunch I didn't realize it was open to everybody, and so some cities had it, so they had the best comedian there. If you can make safety and that kind of stuff fun, more hats off to you, right? I would like to mention the redistricting meeting. I listened in when I got home last night on the redistricting meeting. I have some pretty, there was a map called map number 8. I have concerns about map number 8. It would divide the city of Fountain up. We could potentially have 3 county commissioners taking care of us, dividing the city up. And I think if you have a chance, the last meeting for input before they start deliberating which maps they're going to present is Monday. And I know it's not real super convenient, but it's Monday at 9 a.m. They're trying to do daytimes and nighttime ones at the regional building department. I think it we talk about trying to run a good budget. The county talks about trying to run a good budget. I can't imagine the extra staff time trying to deal with 2 commissioners and possibly 3 commissioners, and the divisions it's going to make within the city. So I'm really concerned. So if you have time to go online and look at the various maps and look at map number 8 especially, I do have some pretty good concerns about map number 8. I think, Corey, you might have been there, but at the meeting, and there's still maps. I understand there's still 16 maps that have been turned in by citizens that they haven't even presented yet. So it's going to be interesting. Keep an eye on what's happening to Fountain. We are a community of interest with Fort Carson. We're a community of interest with Hanover. And security in Widefield, and I think we need to, and kind of like the whole Fountain Valley, we need to be respected as a community of interest. I appreciate the west side of Colorado Springs, but I don't see them as a community of interest with us. So this is the time to make your voices heard. And I didn't realize you could call into a meeting, and had a couple people who did call in, so you might want to follow it along live online and make your opinion heard. So with that, Ms. Sylvia.
Thank you. I would like to request an executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-424 for the purpose of review, approval, and amendment of executive session minutes, and 2 items pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-424B for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions.
Okay, that is from our city clerk. What would council like to do with that? Councilmember Rick?
Move we go into executive session.
Councilmember Estes? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
Okay, with that, I'm adjourning the city council meeting for July 11th. Thank you very much.